So I thought I would start with this note because libraries are celebrated. Librarians celebrate their work. It's not just activities and activities and activities. It's taking stock and also celebrating. That's what perhaps INELI is all about. Now, Santiago Public Library System received a similar grant like we received for the IPLM in India. In Chile also they received a similar grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and you can see the difference. And I remember visiting Santiago about 11 years ago when this BMGF project was not there. And I remember also seeing a very boring, very traditional public library system. And they've gone a long way. And we are also in the same trajectory at this point in time. We are also going a long way from being a boring traditional to a dancing and celebrating library system. Priyanka asked me to brief a couple of things about the convening itself, and she has put down a lot of ideas for my deliberations. She says I should share the rich experiences and transformation stories from global and regional INELIs. I think Priyanka herself is best placed to share because very recently you and one more person were at the global INELI regional final. Was it Girija or Nancy and you? And they had an opportunity to interact with the 6 or 7 regional INELIs who came together in Turkey. Where was it?
Yeah, in Turkey we had a few of your INELIs.
In Turkey, isn't it? So they all came together and shared their experiences. And I'm sure at some stage you can share with us the glimpses of the headlines of different regional INELIs. And we also have a headline which we would discover as we go. Although I've seen quite a few libraries around the world, I need to point out that that as many good libraries I've seen in India, I've also seen very bad libraries in India. So India has a unique example of also demonstrating the worst case scenario when it comes to public libraries. And I think I wanted to flag it very early on because we are the ones who are going to transform the whole system. Now if the government and the policy makers and the decision takers often point to libraries that are not functioning very well, I think it's a challenge that we need to take upon ourselves to ensure that this kind of contempt and the perception about public libraries change. So it looks like a headline for us is transformation and repositioning public libraries with many elements that are common that could be implemented across the board. Now I'll come to that in a moment, but when INELI was conceived, and that's the beauty of the Bertelsmann network, which gave birth to INELI, because one of the trainees of that network, Deborah Jacobs, came up with this idea as soon as she took over as the Global Libraries Director at BMGF. She came up with this INELI idea, which was supported greatly by Amy and June and Sandra, 3 of them, and some of us have had the opportunity to meet them and work with them. So they seem to come up with this idea that a library leadership program doesn't have to be only course-based, doesn't have to be only auditing modules or studying vigorously or reflecting upon the change through a structured courseware to promote 5G setup in our country. And they don't want to lose this opportunity. What it would mean to to many of us, including the public library, is something that we need to think about. And that's where we also need to learn from Singapore how alongside SG Wireless and National Library Board work together. In our case, we don't seem to come together. 5G is all about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented realities, virtual realities, deep thinking, data analytics. There's a lot going on out there. And also at the context where 60% of Indians would move into some 50 major states. That means outside 50 major states, 40% of the people are going to live, and 60% of the Indians are going to concentrate or going to pile up in 50 states, 50 cities. And Amritsar is one of those smart cities. There are quite a few smart cities, Tiruchirappalli, Salem, all sorts of cities are recognized. And there are 100 cities recognized under the Amrut scheme. So there is a geographical move from rural to urban. There's also a lot of technological thrust in the urban locations, particularly using 5G, bringing the world to these 60% of population that would concentrate in 50 cities. And it is possible with the Alexas and Cortanas, and I think there is an Indian version of Alexa also Google has come up with. Now you would have heard about the advertisements on FM radio that this advertisement goes on like this: which is the best pop single of the year, Alexa? And Alexa tells you the answer. So Alexa is promoted as an alarm clock sitting next to you in your bedroom, and when you press this clock, there is a voice assistant where you can ask any question. Otherwise, people used to come to a library to ask these questions, even to find out which is the best single of that year. Or I'm going to travel to Texas, or I'm traveling to a place in India. So they would like to come to a library and find out more details. But today, of course, you don't even have to log on to the internet. All that you need to do is to get up from your bed, switch on that alarm, and speak to that Alexa and say that, Alexa, I'm going to Texas. What is the weather like in Texas? And immediately Alexa within 3 seconds gives you the answer. So we are in a scenario where virtual assistants are likely to compete with public librarians. And these virtual assistants are all about machine learning and artificial intelligence inculcated initiatives of big corporates, whether it's Google, Microsoft. And we are going to perhaps meet up with somebody from Google in 2 days' time. You could ask a lot of questions as to what are the initiatives within Google that might impact public libraries, and you would come to know a lot of those. So it is becoming increasingly challenging for public librarians to prove a point that we can exist in spite of all these initiatives. Now one can challenge all of us by saying that 60% of Indians who are going to move into 50 cities may not have the time to go to a library. How would you reach out to them when an alarm clock can reach out to them? So that would be a simple question posed to us. So let's also utilize not the next 2 days, but the coming months and years to think through these challenges as well. Our challenge is not about funding alone. Our challenge is not about lack of footfalls into the library. Our challenge is not about lack of funding for collection development, lack of funding for mobile libraries, lack of funding, the traditional way of our library setup that we have run. We can very easily get engrossed into those challenges, saying that if I had the money, I can run a mobile library. If I had the money, I can run more storytelling sessions. If I had the money, I can do an awareness program, and so on and so forth. That's one set of challenge that we have. Of course, we need funds to do that. We need policy to enable, embrace new partnerships so that not just us with the funding that we receive, but also in partnership with other organizations, we can initiate a number of programs. We can utilize our public space to the maximum. So that's one set of challenge that we have. Lack of attention to public libraries by the public authorities, and also lack of policy support to embrace partnerships so that we are much more freer from the clutches of the governmental bureaucratic settings, which limits us often to do anything and everything that we like. Of course, you've broken the ceiling, so you are able to demonstrate, but 99,500 librarians have not broken the ceiling. They are still in the clutches. They are still subjected to the systemic problem of any public service, and public libraries being neglected as one of those. But that's one set of challenge. But I want to also highlight the other set of challenges that we are going to face in the next 2-3 years. Because if we don't put the foundation right for us, we can lose the game. We can simply lose the game, and all libraries would be extinct. That said, I also want to utilize this opportunity to say that this is not a problem for India alone. Every country is facing this problem. Singapore might face this problem. The United States is facing the problems, particularly the technological, changes. When it comes to that, everyone is going to face the problems. But one silver lining, which often comes about, is what a typical role libraries could play. Again, at a national level, in every country. Now, Professor Jagtar Singh and I were in Lithuania last week, and Latvia, where there is a global recognition to public spaces and public libraries for promoting all sorts of literacy. We are only we've got exposed ourselves to the typical literacy, which is all about promoting reading among children, promoting reading among adults. But the world is facing a new challenge where even the well-educated people could be illiterates when it comes to digital media, fake news, disinformation. We have heard all this during our college days when we studied librarianship, that there is a concept called misinformation, there's a concept called disinformation, and so on. But that said, there is a greater recognition that public libraries could play a key role in promoting media literacy, in promoting information literacy, and all sorts of literacies identified. Digital literacy is another one, legal literacy, family literacy. So if you go to Thailand, there are libraries that promote family literacy. How to actually integrate oneself into the family and contribute to the larger agenda. How could families contribute to national development? So libraries promote this kind of literacy. So I want to stop here by saying that that amidst of all these calamities, all this challenging environment that we face, we seem to be carving a niche for ourselves in terms of positioning public libraries as places where literacy could be promoted. Not just literacy for simple reading, but literacy for a variety of things, including the ability to actually work with various partners to distill what is good information, what is fake information, what is a deliberate attempt to divert our attention. So librarians seem to be finding that niche, and we have not actually gone into that domain. If you ask for yourselves, none of you would have actually entered this domain, but to me it seems that seems to be the future for public librarians. Thank you.